Hello, Richard.
Hello, Paul. Hi.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, getting through these interesting times the best way we can. I think all of us.
Yeah, excellent. And,
How
and you're
you okay?
yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I've been home about 7 weeks now, I think. So
Mm,
it feels weird because working from home. I've worked from home before, like yourself, and we've got an office, and I'm missing the office. But we're quite adaptable, aren't we? Really, to where we work and what we
I-
do.
for me, nothing's changed. I'm still here in my office at home, which is where I always work from, and it's nice because I can kind of shut the door. Particularly at the end of the day, I can shut the door on it, and
Yeah.
that's it. You can sort of divide your time up a bit better. I think it's a struggle for people who aren't used to it, and they've suddenly got to put a desk up in somebody's spare bedroom, or
Yeah.
or in the lounge or whatever. That's probably not a sustainable work option, I guess.
No, I think that at times with our teenagers at home, I think I've needed a panic room more than an office.
Yeah. Well, I'm well past that stage, thankfully. But yeah, I can remember what it's like. Yeah.
Oh, well, I've known you a number of years now. We've worked together on various projects. For those people that are watching that don't know what you do or what you enjoy doing, if you'd like to talk a little bit about your business, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a copywriter, and I still encounter the odd person here and there who thinks that's something to do with intellectual property and copywriting of documents and stuff. So I'll just explain a little bit about what it is. Basically, I write content, and mostly it's content for people's online marketing. So that might be their website. I might do a lot of blog writing for them. I write video scripts. I do marketing emails. So all of those sort of wordy bits of marketing, if you like. But because I'm principally working with smaller businesses, and most of what I do is business to business, not exclusively, but mostly. But because I'm working with smaller businesses that don't tend to have marketing departments and all of that sort of stuff, inevitably, I do a bit of marketing consultancy as well. Now, it's interesting. There are a lot of marketing consultants out there who say, and I do a bit of copywriting. Well, I'm the copywriter who does a bit of marketing
Right.
consultancy,
Yeah.
because because it needs to be done. Because smaller businesses tend to be very sort of focused on what they do, and that tends to come across quite a bit in their marketing because
Yeah.
it's about the product or the service, which of course is probably the least interesting bit for the outside world. So it's helping them to get sort of see their business from the outside and try and write something which is much more engaging for their target audience. And it's enormous fun. I mean, I have to say, I do thoroughly enjoy it. I think the last it's coming on for 10 years now since I started doing this. It's probably been about the happiest sort of working bit of my life, really. Wouldn't change it for the world.
Brilliant.
Although right now I'd probably have a little bit more of it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the consultancy because I say
Mhm.
I'm a designer by trade, and inevitably there is that kind of discovery phase of getting in the headspace of the client, and so many people struggle to have that step back from their business, actually say, well, let's have an audit of how you do things and put it back out in the right way. And I guess that's where experts like you come in.
Yeah, and it is very hard when you're inside of the business. I mean, I find my own marketing harder than anybody doing marketing for anybody else. I'm sure you find the same.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of my working history was in sort of operational business management type roles, where again your focus is on production.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yes, you go out and you'll meet clients, but mainly they're existing clients, and you're very good at interpreting what those people need because you know them extremely well, and you can feed that back into your organisation. But it's right, what have we got to get delivered? How much money have we actually got to produce that thing so we can make a profit? And and that's where your focus is. And it's very hard to sort of lift up and see what's happening in the marketplace. And I think the questions that you don't ask in that are you tend to see marketing as a right, how can we sell more of what we do? That's the reality. And of course there's a whole step before that, which is, are we actually doing the right things for the right people, and doing them in the way that they find adds most value?
Yeah.
And I think while you're day to day, sort of on the day job, getting stuff done, it's difficult to get that depth of expertise in what your market is, or what it could be. And that's really sort of where marketing comes in. And if you're a small business, which most of the organizations I deal with directly, I work with some larger organizations through agencies, but my own sort of client base, they're small businesses. They don't have marketing expertise. They don't have the capacity really to go and sort of look at what's happening in the market. It's a much more sort of reactive model. Yeah, so it's interesting. I try very hard not to sort of promote myself as a marketing consultant, but it's the territory you do get sort of dragged into, really. Yeah,
absolutely. And I always enjoy your LinkedIn posts, very insightful and thought-provoking posts you put on there. And I think then you and I often, and other people get, it's a nice way to talk about. I enjoy talking about marketing, brand positioning, etc. And I guess at the moment, not just, I guess, for businesses is establishing their marketing going out the right way, but being able to adapt and tone of voice, particularly if recently. I mean, I've been looking at a few brands and looking, really kind of analysing how they're dealing with what's going on right now. And I wondered what your thoughts were on adapting and kind of brand positioning.
I think, I mean, it's very difficult to, well, it's not difficult, it's impossible to generalise, because, every business is different, every market they're dealing with is different. And for some businesses, of course, what they're doing is entirely relevant and timely to our current situations, in which case, you don't want to look exploitative, but actually you've got something which is going to help people. So, Zoom, for example, is it's the right product, right time. I mean, why the hell wouldn't you market the hell out of it? But for a lot of people, and to a certain extent that includes my business, is nobody's really looking to spend money right now on what I'm doing, and therefore there's no point businesses in that situation sort of bunging out loads of sales activation emails and promoted posts and all the rest of it, because it's just jarring. But as I said earlier, you don't disappear. If all you can do is stand on the sidelines and cheer and be supportive or whatever, well, do that, because you do need as a business to keep in people's minds. And I guess more than that, and this is where the tone of voice and the messaging really comes in, is be seen in the right way, being seen as helpful, supportive. So, I mean, part of the motivation behind doing my LinkedIn post is A, it gives me something to do, but B, it's, I'm saying you should be using this time to think about your business and how you're going to move forward and position it and whatever. Well, hopefully those posts are helping people to do that. I'm not a marketing guru, therefore I do not pretend to have all of the answers, but, I aspire to being a competent marketer and at least know what some of the questions are. And I think that's the thing, is just putting out the questions and getting people to think about these things while they've got a bit of space to do it.
Excellent. And I guess from that kind of opportunity to for businesses to kind of take stock, and if they've got that time to do that, is to go through and I guess look at their current brand communication and is to start to think about how that could evolve, because I think one of the big things that's come through is that it's never going to be the same again, in terms of maybe the way things are done, but also the way people do them using more online things such as Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, it's always an interesting one, isn't it, to try and sort of project into the future based on our current experience. And I know you've probably seen the same sort of posts as I have, which a lot of them are clickbaity, sort of, oh, well, the world of work is never going to be the same, and there'll be no more offices, there'll be no more shops, and of course all of it's bullshit, really, isn't it? Because the reality, I think, for a lot of businesses is that they have found a way of working that helps them survive through this time when they can't get people physically together. It isn't the most optimum way of working. By any means, and it isn't a digital transformation. It's kind of a digital sticking plaster, if you like. And some businesses as well, which have switched to online trading because that's all they've got. They are not able to offer the customer experience and the support that goes with that. Now, okay, we're all going to be a bit sort of reasonable at the moment, because it's difficult for everybody. But when you get back into normal times, people's expectations will go back to where they were. So, and I had a phone call from my daughter the other day, who lives down on the south coast, saying I had a right meltdown this morning because I was just missing my colleagues. I wanted to go for a coffee with me with my workmates at the cafe and stuff. So there's social and cultural things that throw into it and all the rest of it. So it's never going to be quite as clear cut as we think going forward. Yes, it's going to change. Of course it is. You can't go through something of this magnitude and everything comes out the same the other side. But I think trying to second guess what that looks like in terms of how people work is hard. But I think what it'll mean for some businesses is some of their competition will, sadly, not be there. And it may be that the market they're selling into is looking to buy different things in slightly different ways. And as always, the businesses that are putting in the hard yards now to do the detailed qualitative research and the thinking and the analysis that says, actually, this is what I think the world is going to look like. Here's our best guess, because it can only be that. And this is how we maybe need to reconfigure what we do. And this is how we need to present that to the market so that we're tapping into what is in people's minds at that point. I think that's enormously valuable work that businesses, ought to be doing at all times, but at this time more than any other, you haven't even got the excuse of I haven't really got time to think about it.
Yeah, true. I've been quite fascinated by the supermarkets and how some of them have, how their communications and how that's been put forward, say adapting and kind of, I guess, maybe some businesses digging out their brand manual of what they stand for, what they're about, and go, let's go back to those roots and putting that back out. And I think it's a great time for some people to do that if they're able to, if they
And I think if you've got strong culture and values as a business, you're in a much better place because you've got something to fall back on other than selling. And I think that's and that's I guess the thing to for businesses really to think about is this whole business of segmentation of the market. So even diving into your own data and understanding where you're making money and where you're just kind of ticking over as a business, because most businesses will have different sort of product or service lines, some of which will be historical, some of which they think will be the absolute core of the business, but in fact, because they've been doing them so long, the margins have dropped to a point where it's not it's not really contributing that much to the business. And if you project that 5 years into the future, it's just going to get even worse. Or, why would you market that? But then looking at, okay, well, where do we have opportunities for profitable growth? What does that market look like? And how do we need to position our offer or even modify or innovate our offer to suit that particular market? And then it's how do you, through your marketing, carry that positioning through so that you're triggering the right thoughts in people's minds and all of that stuff. It's I mean, it's fascinating when you get into some of the sort of marketing theory and psychology, because differentiation is the other thing that people always tell you. You've got to segment, you've got to differentiate your business so that you're so you're offering something different from the competition. And two dangers with that, and I did a blog post about this recently, in that if you're differentiating on the same things that everybody else is differentiating on, so say, oh yeah, but we're all about customer service. Okay, and then you go and ask the customers of any of your competitors' business, and they say, well, what's the customer service like? They say, oh, it's brilliant. That's so that isn't really a differentiator, even though you think it is. Or they'll differentiate on something that customers don't really care about. But so that none of that actually helps. So again, it's understanding what your market is, and sometimes it's not really feasible to completely differentiate your business. And then it's about sort of being distinctive. And there's a real difference between the two, because, and again, I use this example in a blog post recently. So imagine you're a comms company. You sell telephone systems and IT services and all that sort of stuff, and you're operating locally. You're a fairly small company, and your competition is other small companies plus a few national providers and a big provider like Southwest Comms, for example. The big providers have always got a massive advantage because people know them, they remember them. So you're now trying to shout your marketing into that space, and it's hard to get noticed. Now, what a lot of businesses will do is they go, oh, well, what are the big guys doing for their website and their marketing? What does that look like? What do they say on there? Because they're successful, so they must be getting it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they'll think, well, we'll copy that model. And of course, it never, ever works, because all you're doing is every time you put out marketing that looks and sounds like them, people don't remember your brand, they remember Southwest Comms. And so, oh, right, yeah. So actually, you're helping their brand, not yours. So if you can just be different, have a distinctive voice, something different to say, a different way of presenting yourself as a business, different visual brand assets, the sort of stuff you do, then all of a sudden, you are being remembered. And that's it's two things. You've got to get attention, you've got to be noticed, but you've also got to be remembered, because people do forget. So you do something about sort of IP phones, and people think, oh yeah, I need to get some IP phones. Yeah, that's all they've remembered. Now where do I go? Oh yeah, Southwest Comms, they do those.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what you've got to be so careful of. So it's differentiation works up to a point. Being distinctive always works, because that's what makes your business and your brand memorable. And that's where the creativity bit comes in. So it's creativity in terms of the stuff I do, creativity in terms of the stuff you do, makes something different and something more memorable. And again, that's, I think, something that a lot of businesses could be thinking about quite hard right now. Is our marketing all just sort of plain vanilla?
Yeah.
Does it look and sound like everybody else's marketing? In which case, what's the point, really?
And it's one of the things on that, which I'm sort of add to really, is when we work together on projects. So I work on the visual side, and you're doing the word and the communication on that, and I have done with other people. And it's people seeing the value in that investment. That I've been frustrated. I'm sure you have over the years where I've maybe got to put a website together for somebody and the brand assets, but they. Sometimes obviously it's down to budget if you're a startup, but sometimes having the ingredients. So this is us, this is our word, and this is who we are, this is our brand positioning. Here's some great photography I've had done that and often it's kind of making a nice cake for someone without any ingredients, or that's how I sort of feel. It can be a frustrating process, but obviously sometimes it's down to budget, but it's people knowing that it's absolutely fundamental about if you're going to be selling a product or service, that you put out in the right way at the right time to the right people.
That sort of comes back to the start of our conversation here in terms of the current situation. Is if marketing is synonymous with promotional activity, and it isn't anything else, and then the business is going to look at it right now and say, well, look, nobody's buying, therefore there's no point spending money on all that promotional stuff. But there is a massive amount of research out there that says if you're spending roughly half of your budget on long-term brand building stuff and half of your budget on the short-term sales activation stuff, that is the way to build a successful brand over time. You will achieve much, much more than just throwing everything into paid search and marketing emails and all the rest of it, which you absolutely need to do, particularly in today's market. You absolutely need to do that. But unless you're actually building brand equity as well through all of this at the same time, and that's the bit that's harder to do. But that's where the real value lies.
I think absolutely, and I think it's you mentioned and say it's the building, it's consistency that, and I guess it crosses into different areas. It's the same with going to business networking events. I'm sure I've met countless people that I tried networking, I went 2 or 3 times and it wasn't for me. I didn't get anything out of it. Or, I advertised my business for a couple of times in a journal or some magazine, and I didn't get a return. I'm like, you just turned up at the party and left early. And it's those people seeing that it's consistent, reinforcing the message, building the brand equity that gets you to be into people's minds, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And this is one of the difficulties with some of the work I do around sort of blog writing and that sort of stuff for organizations, because they're so locked into this, I need to see a short-term return on that bit of spend.
Yeah.
It's difficult to understand that actually what you're doing is you're building for the long term. You're just continuously being there, saying things which are relevant and helpful, and reinforcing your brand values and your brand positioning, and then over time, and again, particularly in a business to business environment, the sales lead times can be quite long.
Yeah.
And out of your potential market, even if you've segmented that down quite a bit, you've probably only got about 3% of that, if you're lucky, which is actively looking to buy anything at any particular time. So if you're just there for a couple of months, and then they're not interested in buying until 6 months' time, and you've disappeared from the market in that time, too bad, you've had it, pal. You can't resurrect it at that point. And and the more you've got that brand recognition, and particularly if it's related to, again, values as a business and relevance of your offer to that business segment, that's what builds for the long term. That's where you're really going to deliver some value.
Excellent. And it might be a bit crude in me saying this, but I've often used this at our networking event. But I thought it's quite a way to put it across, which it's a bit like, when in my teen years, you go to nightclubs, and it is a bit like just going up to someone, pinching their bum and going, want a drink, who are you? What? So you want to sell something to somebody is almost, where's the romance? Where's people admiring you from afar and going, they're all right, quite like them, what they're about. And then they'll come and talk to you and start that rapport. So maybe it's a bit crude way to say it, but it is about that, the long-term game and building the relationship, really, isn't it? Which in business is all about people and relationships, whatever you sell or whatever you do. But yeah, it's just that important sort of, like say, the time and investment in that, isn't it? And I guess I mentioned the networking and advertising in magazines or TV advertising or whatever, but it's also the same for the social channels. As people go, I tried Twitter for a month and nothing from it, and you're like, nothing happens overnight.
Well, it's true, isn't it? Because people have got so sort of hooked on this sort of last click attribution. So if you're selling PPC, it's great, isn't it? Because you can say, look, we spent £1,000 on that campaign. We got this number of clicks. That actually translated through to this number of sales. Yeah. Because what you never know is, why did people click on that ad in the first place? Was it because they recognized the business? Because we filter out stuff we don't recognize. Were you at the Digital Taunton the other month, where Kendall MacDonald was just
I watched online.
And I thought that was just an absolutely spot on talk, because it's all the stuff you don't notice, and it's why do you notice the things you do, and and so if there's something there that and trust, you think, right, okay, I'll have a look at that. I'm prepared to entertain even letting that sink into my consciousness, never mind to click on it. It's all the work that goes in before that click that actually is often very, very important, but gets overlooked. And of course, as soon as you stop doing all the bits before, it's the back end falls over eventually as well.
Yeah, it makes me think we had somebody that advertised in our magazine, but just the once, and was saying I didn't really get anything out of it, and we said, well, you won't if it's once. And I said to him, you've got your van sign written, and he just goes, well, yeah, how much, the whole van's done up, and that's cost you quite a bit of money to get it done, about £800. So I said, so you drive around with your moving advert all day long? He said, yeah. I said, so how many people saw your van today? Well, I don't know. I said, well, yeah, but you're building the awareness. They might not ring you up and go, I've just seen you going down the M5, and you've got a list of it. but it's people seeing your message and your touch points, isn't it, over and over again.
This is why you would never make a television advert and show it once, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or even come up with an advertising thing. I mean, you take the sort of Go Compare, that annoying singing bloke and all that sort of stuff. That's just reinforced over campaign after campaign after campaign. And so as soon as you see that little twirly moustache thing, you know what brand it is.
Yeah.
And so you don't just sort of, oh yeah, right, well, I did a little blast on that, didn't work, off we go. It's that constant reinforcement. But you've got to believe in what you're doing before you commit to that. So I think that's I think, and dare I say it, the marketing industry doesn't always do itself a lot of favors in that respect, because it's, if you're sitting there as a business owner or a senior manager or whatever, it looks like one fad after another.
Yeah.
And actually the basics of marketing have never really changed in my view. It is about that positioning, segmentation, knowing your market, differentiating where you can, but above all being distinctive and having great creative assets. That is it. You can dress, you can put whatever tactical things you want around that, but if you haven't got that core of marketing practice right, you're just throwing money away, frankly.
Absolutely. And I often
sorry, soapbox there, wasn't it?
I often say to people, I say, like, name a fast food chain, and they all go McDonald's, and it's like, why do McDonald's still have to advertise? Who doesn't know McDonald's in the world? Because they obviously remain at the top, and Burger King are close behind them, or whatever. And I always think, when you get to that brand level where you've got a whistle as a catchphrase, and people whistle it, and you don't even have to put the end bit on now. People go, I'm loving it, because they know from their marketing, you said that consistency, that they don't even need to put it on there because people know it. And I guess the jingles and things like that, that's kind of the level when you've got really people know your brand awareness is so high. And we could talk about it forever.
we could, but it's about being remembered. Yeah. And that's the thing. If there's nothing memorable in your marketing, then you're not going to be remembered. There you go. There's a little aphorism for you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great to catch up, Richard, and I'll pop some details that people can get in touch. Say hello on LinkedIn. Have a look at a bit more of what you do. That would be great. Finally, my question I ask everybody. So, if you weren't all things word and communications, what would you do differently, or what were you told at school that you might be when you grow up?
Oh gosh, I don't know. We have to wait and see what happens when I grow up, I suppose. When I left school, actually, I was going to be something in the science world. I'm not sure how many people know this, but I actually have a science degree. I was a materials scientist, so I suppose if I hadn't ended up through a different sort of business career and ended up in marketing, I might be some sort of white-coated, white-haired scientist or whatever somewhere. But it's funny, isn't it, how we all end up doing the jobs we're doing. That said, I am not at all disappointed with where I've ended up.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear. And thanks for your time today. It's been nice to see you, and hopefully be seeing you in person very soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
All right. Well, all the best. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Paul. Bye.
Bye.